All right. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. That was our sneak peek video into our new Beauty of Block branding that we launched already been about a month ago. So I hope you enjoyed that. If you guys haven't heard, the Checkoff has a new brand. It's the Beauty of Block, and there is a website you can go visit. So hopefully you were able to catch that video, and if not, we're more than happy to send it out. So uh, again, welcome to our Wednesday programs webinar. My name is Alicia Hodges, and I am the Checkoff Program Director. Today, I'm joined by Aaron Heidecker from Clutch Marketing and James Cain, President of the Southeast Concrete Masonry Association. James is going to discuss the Region 2 University Education and Research Program here in just a minute. He's our program lead for that program and just doing an amazing job. So in just a minute, I will turn it over to him, but I wanted to share a little bit more about James with you all before we get started. So James Cain is the president of the Southeast Concrete Masonry Association, which encompasses North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, Georgia, and Tennessee. He oversees 10 committees with 82 people in the 5 states for all promotional educational efforts of the concrete masonry, hardscapes, and brick. He currently oversees the Region 2 University Education and Research Program, which we're going to learn a little bit about today, and the Region 2 Masonry Framed Homes Program, which we will hear about in the future, I'm sure. So he currently serves on the National Programs Committee and the Region 2 RAC, as well as the Region 2 Communications Task Group. And he's continually active with AIA, CSI, SEA, and 19 universities, educating different programs on the benefits and uses of masonry-related products. So we're excited to have James here. Before we get started, everybody, thank you for dropping in the chat where you're from. As I said, I'm Alicia Hodges. I'm joining you actually from Des Moines, Iowa. It's sweltering here today. Before we get started, I wanted to let you guys know we are, as you can tell, in a webinar format. And so your cameras are off, your microphones are muted. You guys can see us. We do want to make sure you remain engaged, so feel free to stay engaged in the chat. James is going to make time for questions at the end of the webinar. So he'll save 10 to 15 minutes at the end to answer any questions that you may have. So if you do have a question, I would encourage you to put that in the Q&A. If you throw it in the chat, it could get lost. So put your questions in the Q&A, and James is happy to answer those for you at the end. We are recording, so we'll send the recording of this out so you can pass it on to other investors and stakeholders, and it'll be posted on our website as well. So I think that's enough of me. So James, if you're ready, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you, okay?
Very good. Well, thank you so much, Alicia and Aaron, for allowing us to be on today. So we're very fortunate to give you an opportunity to kind of hear. We've heard a lot about the CMU Checkoff, and I think it's important to kind of start hearing about on these monthly calls about some of the wins that we're having already through the Checkoff program. So the University Education Program, we'll kind of jump right into it. Kind of what we identify as really the university program need. We know there's been a long lag of fostering relationships with universities. Really, the gap has really allowed our competing systems to actually influence curriculum, and also universities and vocational schools and the things that happen at the university level. So it's been a challenge, and I really feel like the need was to get the industry back involved in these universities, not just on a surface level, but more of it in a depth level. And we'll talk about that as we go through the presentation today. So kind of our scope of work for the program was the vision was to establish kind of a robust dialogue with universities and students and professors, but really start making that bridge, right, and creating that roadmap for resources that are available not only for universities and their students, but also resources for our producers as well. So if we kind of look at producers as a whole, most of them generally don't have a lot of relationships with universities. So it'd be a new avenue of growth for them. So I always say to my producers one simple thing: everybody's qualified. If you're a producer, if you're a supplier, you're always qualified to work with a university. There should never be a reason why you don't work with a university in your local area. So kind of one of the things that we put in place was kind of an actionable game plan. And the first thing we did was kind of leverage the past. I'm a firm believer in kind of looking at our past successes, within Region 2 to kind of identify where our wins have been. Those wins being University of Florida, those wins being the NC State when it comes to the CMU Design Studio and the Pat Rand Scholarship. Also with Virginia Tech and University of Tennessee. So you can kind of go around the region and kind of see pockets of past efforts that have been successful. And that's due to some of the great producers that we have in place around Region 2. But also looking at some of those producers and kind of understanding what are their takeaways, what do they learn working with universities. If I'm really going to kind of tackle this university in the region, we've got to kind of understand what the producers are doing today. Also, the fact is what we can actually leverage and kind of expand, making it more of a scalable approach with some of the efforts that's already taken place at pockets of universities. And kind of find the success stories, right? I always go back to one of my good friends, David McQueen, with NC State at Adams Oldcastle. He's had a phenomenal relationship there, and it goes back to even the Frank Warner days there. So past success stories are always important. So we learn on history, take history, kind of build our future. So one of the things we quickly did was kind of say, okay, if we're going to look at these universities, how are we going to look at them and what are we looking for? So the first thing we did, we went to the NAAB, which is the Architectural Accrediting Board, and kind of identified those programs, the accredited programs across Region 2 at our universities. The second thing we did, we looked at ABET, which is the Engineering Accrediting Board, and really identify those engineering programs that are accredited across these universities. You know, and everybody knows engineering, it has different disciplines within the word engineering. So we kind of honed in on certain disciplines within the engineering field. And then the third piece of that was looking at construction management. So it's kind of a three-pronged approach that we take when we work with the university. We're always looking to see if they have an accredited architectural program, an engineering program, and also a construction management program. If they have one of those key components at the university level, that is kind of our wheelhouse for us to want to work with that university in some capacity. But we also look at the community colleges as well, because there's an avenues there kind of underutilized to focus on the opportunities at the community college level also. And we'll talk about a few of those in this presentation. So the part 3 of our actionable game plan was to kind of listen to the audience, right? You know, learning sales, the first thing you should be doing is listening, taking that listening and being able to identify what the need is and then to build to meet that need. And I think the way we've built out our program so far is meeting the needs of not only our universities, but our professors and all the way down to the students. And then consistency in process. I would say one of the most successful thing about a program is very simple. You got to have a solid team of a task group built around the program to make it successful. It's not success because of James Cain. It's success because of the producers that are involved, the suppliers that are involved, the workforce, the contractors that are involved, the professors that are involved. So it's really, I consider it kind of a total team effort when you talk about moving a program forward, no matter really what it is. But at a university level, we found that it's pivotal to make sure that we have a select group of people. And we'll talk about that group in just a second here. The last thing on the collaborative task group was really, we wanted to make sure we had looked around the region and identified some people that were pro-masonry and some that were not pro-masonry, right? We don't want everybody to be pro-masonry. We want some that was on the fence or even some naysayers. So we really decided that we wanted people that would be on a collaborative task group that would meet on a regular basis. And I'll say one thing that I'm really proud about our task group is this task group has been operating for over a year now. So we started months ago before the program was approved, even in the infancy phases. We decided to go ahead and hit the ground running. And I would encourage any producer or anybody that's running the program, don't wait on the contract to be signed. That's probably, you're just putting yourself behind the 8 ball. Go ahead and get started because you can always get reimbursed for the dollars later on through the program. So I would encourage anybody kind of not to sit on the fence on programs. So we didn't. We kind of jumped real head first into it, 10 months, and now we're over a year into the task group, and it's been successful. So what does that dream team look like? The dream team for me is really to build out some people that have good history. When you look at Dana Goling with NC State or Dr. Dick Bennett from University of Tennessee, or even Robbie Barnes with Auburn University and Brent Tiptis with UNC Charlotte, We picked people that not only had knowledge of masonry, but we also picked universities that we felt like it went beyond just that. So with Dr. Dick Bennett, and Professor H.A., they're able to help pull in their knowledge from the Masonry Society into this task group. So we look just not at just what they did at the university, but what else they could bring to the table. So, and then we also kind of had a good mix of the industry side of, in Florida, some mix with Chad, and also, a single block producer like an Andy Bryant. They're in Tennessee, Byard and David off of Oldcastle with their relationships with universities already. We pulled in a supplier, Chris Miller from Roanoke Cement. I wanted to make sure we had a kind of well-rounded group. Josh Simpson, brand new sales guy. I never worked with universities before within the industry, now does. And then we also pulled in our other partner associations. We felt like that was important to make sure we had a well-rounded group. So everything that we do on this task group is really centered about how do we get more masonry in those schools. It starts with listening, but it also understands that there's many bullets in the gun that I call to walk into university and being able to offer different things. That's from scholarships, that's from product samples, that's from lectures learned, that's from future research that could be done at those colleges. And we'll talk a little bit about some of those as we move forward here. So the task group actually had when you kind of look at across 8 states, how are you going to tackle universities? So we kind of took a more of a 8-state approach. We knew that we could quickly see where our architectural programs were, our construction management programs, engineering, and kind of tallied all those up. So we knew kind of where our focus should be, kind of what we've learned with the task group so far. Maybe we don't try to tackle all the universities in a state. Maybe we pick 1 or 2. That's one thing I would probably tell you that you can do in your region. Just pick 1 or 2 universities and start there and grow it from there, because there's nothing better than word of mouth from one university using them as a reference to work with another university as you kind of move forward, especially when there's like an engineer that at one college versus another college that know each other. That's how we've seen some of the doors open as well. So we identified 77 programs across our 8 states. We then took those 77 programs, we broke them down by the district. And we said in District 4, we know there's 20 schools and there's 32 programs. In District 5, 12 and 18. And Florida has 15 and 27. So we're not going after all of these at one time. We do have more of a surgical approach, and just so you know, and this is kind of a gold nugget for you. If you're on a task group, give your task group a break. They work full time. They have a full time career. These roles are volunteers. So, my task group, we took off the last 2 months. We start back in September. We gave them kind of the summer off. Felt like that was important. So when they come back in September, they'll be energized and kind of ready to roll up their sleeves and get some things done. So this is kind of how we've broken out down to the district level of schools that we're going to focus on. So some of the due diligence I won't show in the PowerPoint because it takes too long, but we've identified majority of the professors at these schools. Professors meaning in those 3 disciplines that we talked about earlier. We've identified the dean of that program. We've also identified some of the associate professors that actually would be a better angle. So we have 3 or 4 different ways to work in that university to being able to open the doors. And we'll talk about at the end here. We'll show you the tools that we can give to any producer across the entire U.S. to get in the door of a university. I tell people all the time, the word that I always like to use for university is persistence. It typically takes about 6 to 9 months to really establish a relationship with the university and kind of let them believe and feel that you're really there to help them and not sell them on anything. So I think that's probably been our biggest success. And I will say this about our task group. I think this is an important note. If you look at the fact that the professors have a full-time job of working at these universities, one of the drawbacks that I felt like was going to be is how are you going to get professors to be on a task group consistently, time and time again? And so we went to each one of them and asked them, said, do you mind donating your time to help us move this program forward? So everyone you saw on the task group earlier, back up just for a second, that you see on this task group has volunteered their time. So we don't have to pay them a penny to be on this task group. They believe in where we're going with this program, and they want to be a part of that. So that's how we've been successful so far with this stream team. So kind of the deliverables of the program was a producer's professor workshop, also some new masonry courses, and then also the grassroots engagement that we'll talk about. One thing that we're working for 2025 is the future regional educators forum for our universities around the 8 states. So University Education Research Program, the first thing we kind of launched, we spent several months working on this with the task group, was a producer professor workshop. It was with 8 schools. We actually had the producers work hand in hand with the schools to create a case study. We kept the case study pretty vanilla, I'll call it. We wanted to understand the history. We wanted to understand where they were today, and we wanted to understand where they wanted to go tomorrow and how we could use checkoff dollars to get us there. So the workshop was really built around thinking regionally. That's something we've had to change. Yes, and even though we have 5 states, we look at our program as being an 8-state program. And how do we pull in those other states in there? We would target the schools. We kind of checked that box. And one thing that we found in the industry, and y'all can appreciate this, is there's a lot of efforts that's done in the dark, right? So there's a lot of good things that take place within states, within associations, within producers, within suppliers, that a lot of people don't hear about. It's not put on social media. It's not created a case study. It's not a one-pager. You're not having conference calls about it. But so there's a lot of phenomenal works that go on day in and day out around these regions. We do a poor job of capturing that information and being able to use it as leverage going forward in marketing. So that's one thing I really wanted to try to work on, is getting the more efforts that we do kind of brought front and center, that other producers can see it. And I go back to what I said earlier. If you're a producer, you are qualified to work with a university. So there should be no reason why you don't. And I'll stop here and say, I had a comment one time that was given to me. It's like, hey, I'm a one plant guy. I wear multiple hats. And I can appreciate that. But you approach it more from the fact of being sensitive to that, but also to understand when they do have time, can they work with those universities? And that's when we see the Sam Finney's of the world that works with, has in the past worked with Old Dominion University. When we've seen Indy Bryant, a one-block plant location, work with University of Tennessee. So you kind of have to slow down, and where we want to run 100 miles an hour, sometimes we just have to be a little more respectful of their time and kind of how do we work this in the program overall. So, and it's been successful for us. So we launched a campaign and we built out the state. We launched a campaign with the producers, and then we built out the case studies. So what you see here on the screen is really just kind of just a few pictures. Didn't put a bunch in here because of time constraints. But we had a total of 8 professors. They came down to to this workshop. It was all expenses paid for them to come down. And I'll tell you, we did the analysis on what it costs to bring a professor down, fly them down, or drive them down. Rental cars and everything else. It costs typically between that $1,500 to $2,500 to get a professor to come to an event. So in the future, when you're kind of marketing to professors, just understand that if you've got to cover the cost, the cost is very minimum, because every one of these professors that came, along with the producers that were there, will tell you that it was not only a phenomenal event, but it gave them an opportunity to sit down at the table and actually have lunch with them, network with them, learn from them. And there's some good takeaways you'll talk about at the end here from this workshop. But, you see here on the screen, Auburn University on the left there, talking about the engineering program. One of the things we learned from him was the fact that they've got a multi-million-dollar lab that's not being used with masonry. So we hope to see how we can leverage more masonry in that lab at the university, Auburn University. You see here in the middle, Josh Simpson and Professor Benji, Appalachian State University. They have the largest construction management program in the country right now. They're actually moving forward with hopefully creating a new building just for this program. And so we have a relationship not only with him, but also with some of the other faculty, along with Josh. He's there. He's on their advisory board. So that was important to us as well. That was another angle of working with universities. So we'll get into specifically some of the case studies, and I think it was important to kind of show you a few of these. So at NC State, we have a long-standing relationship with them. But, over time, people change, right? So we've seen the Pat Rand of the world It's been phenomenal for the industry for many years. He's moved on. So Danny Goling, which is kind of moved through the ranks. She is now kind of the main point of contact there. So we still do the design competition with NC State University. It's put on. I think this past year we probably had around 40 some students that actually attended that event. So that was one of the angles that we worked with NC State that you see here on the screen. Another fact is a hands-on. Throughout the year, there's tours that's put on. There's also an opportunity for the instructors. You see here, Miss Dana Goling. She's learning as well, right? So we think it's important that the more questions that she brings to us, that we can then give her the correct answers to, but also the fact that the students can learn from the professor, because the professor's kind of done it as well. So this is working with NC State. Here again, you see with the industries kind of working with students. We're showing variations of different products, how the exterior looks like on the wall. So to give them an opportunity to showcase that. Here you'll see that, we do lunch and learns. I think that's not uncommon to do those, but we'll talk about how we're going to expand lunch and learns in the future. But, we have a great relationship there that we actually go in, we do lunch and learns with the students. We do block tours with the students. We do scholarships there as well. We do a CMU studio that we'll talk about in a minute that's funded through the CMH Foundation. So you'll see here, this is part of the CMU studio that's put on at NC State. We actually have students that actually in that studio actually design buildings, and we actually come in and bring judges and critique those projects. So that is something that we do at University, NC State University. And one thing you'll see here on the construction site tours, you'll see us that we actually take them on job sites. Let them see firsthand how the walls go up, how we're leveraging CMU and other masonry products in the wall. And one thing I'll say about this, because I want to slow down, this is a very important point. Our relationship with NC State goes back over 20 years. And over 20 years, we have seen over 1,500 students that are now practicing in the field. So those students now, as you see here on the screen here, that again, it's another shot of design, broadening resources for the students. But I want you to know that 1,500 students have kind of been impacted over the last few years, and now those students are actually in the field or practicing. They see some of our producers. They say, "Hey, we know you," and we from the Block Fest events that we're doing, or the student design competitions, or the plant tours. So we may not see the benefits year 1, 2, 3, or 4, but down the road, it's proven time and time again that we have seen these students, once they graduate, they are familiar with masonry. And that's what we want all universities to understand, that we want these students to come out, that they not only understand some aspects of masonry, but they have a key resource, and that's so important, a key resource in the market to understand and broaden their knowledge. So now it turns in from doing Block Fest events at universities. Now we're doing lunch and learns at their firms, right? So that's how it changes. Now we're getting involved with their AIA chapters or their engine or CSI chapters. So that's how it changes over time and how it trickles down. So I'll belabor that point because it's very important. It's just not working with the universities, but it's the long-term plan here is we want them to get in the field and spec our products and put it in the wall. And if they do that, then we were winning. Appalachian is a new one for us. There is a scholarship that's in place there, but one of the things I wanted just to show you was we asked Josh and the professor kind of talk about, well, how did it even start, right? Because as a producer, you always got to think about, how do I even start working with a university? It started with a phone call, right? It's plain old simple, old-fashioned way of picking up the phone and calling somebody. Don't text them, call them. Know what they're willing to offer. Me and Josh talked about what were the highlights that we can offer, from scholarships to lectures to free product samples to opportunities to come down to the workshop, all expenses paid. So we kind of talked about how do we expand the masonry education into that school. We talked about budgets. We talked about kind of defining what the impact was and how do we expand that discussion. So one of the things that we did, we brought in a consultant, Tina Sabasic. She did a program talking about the environmental impacts of masonry on CMU. I thought that was really important because, we recognize in Region 2 here that the younger generation is very sensitive to the environment. We talked about how batteries of cars on the roads today, how that impacts the roads. We talked about how we leverage CMU in these different buildings and the low carbon aspect of that. So we talked about many different angles, but we tied it into things that they were relevant to the students that we're interested with. And we probably had, I don't know, 15, 20 questions that came out of this lecture, but just another way of reaching the younger generation. Georgia Tech is one that I work on with some of my producers. Georgia Tech's an interesting one, right? It's the fact that they came to us about 3 years ago and said, "Hey, we're doing a construction camp, and is there any way we could possibly talk about getting masonry into this camp?" I said, "Absolutely." We never turn nobody down. That's number one. So what we did is we kind of put a game plan together. We sit down with our masonry contractor partner, MAG, Masonry Association of Georgia. We said, "Hey, we needed speakers. We needed presenters. We needed people that was going to be hands-on with the students." So what we've been able to do there is a great success story. These students are incoming students to the program. They actually have no experience with masonry whatsoever. So what we actually do, we spend time with them building the walls, explaining not only why we're using a rebar, why we're using a ladder wire in the walls, but more importantly, these walls are actually used at the end of the construction camp. There's infrared that's put on them. There's some more research that's done there. So ultimately, it's just not building walls, but ultimately to being able to expand not only their knowledge of masonry. This year, we actually put them on a bus. We bused them 35 miles away from Atlanta, Georgia, down to Tyrone, Georgia. GMS stepped up and was able to give us a plant tour for those students and actually provide them the proper safety wear that they needed for this, because that's the other thing. Small things you recognize with these universities. You can ask them to provide hard hats and safety glasses and also steel-toe boots. Some can, some can't, but that's where the industry does step up and use some checkoff dollars to actually help these students not only are properly fitted when they come on a site, that they actually can go through these plants pretty safe as well. So they not only see the production facilities, but they also get a chance hands-on, and then they also use the walls that are built. You'll see here, I'll just fast forward just a little bit. You'll see the walls are actually, the finished walls are actually pretty good for students. And so we actually use those walls. They use the walls for future research inside the lab. So good success story there at Georgia Tech. You look at North Carolina A&T, Pat Porter came down from Chicago, has moved into the North Carolina market a few years back with Adams Oldcastle. He's tasked with working with universities. And so from the ground up, Pat's done a phenomenal job there. He quickly jumped on board with their built environment construction management program. We looked at their advisory board. He is now a key person on their advisory board. He has helped raise, I think, about $25,000 for scholarships for them. So I'll stop there, and just so you can see, it's not always about just doing lectures. Sometimes it's about just being involved from the industry's perspective, going out and actually doing hands-on demonstration for students. It's the first time ever we've done it in North Carolina A&T. You'll also see here student events. Gave us an opportunity to talk to the students one-on-one about the industry. Not only about some of our producers that were there, but also the fact is talking about the industry as a whole. So it always excites me when we get an opportunity to bring masonry into that university. And I always say that, it's only opening the door, right? So this just opened the door to Pat being on the advisory board. Pat also helping lead another called Casino Night that's coming up later in the fall this year. So it's just expanding opportunities. And part of it's just showing that we as an industry want to be involved with universities. So one of the things we know we need to do as an industry is to have more masonry taught inside the classroom. So one of the things that we looked at was at Clemson University was talking about how do we actually work inside the classroom, but think outside the box. So part of it is, and I'll stop and say we did the homework to understand that, when you talk about wood industry, putting programs into schools, well, they're paying for that. So if you're a trade, you're paying to get your message into these schools. So we work with Dr. Laura Redmond. It's a masonry structural design course. It's not a regularly taught course. We actually are launching it in 2025. You'll see there not only with our lab that we have our producer provide some materials. We have also provide the masons. We have another producer, General Shell. They provide guest speakers, materials there. We support the lab. We do a hands-on event with the students also. But I wanted to let you know you can't see this really good, but it's a 12-week engineering course that gets launched in the spring of next year. The good story is the way we approach these universities about these courses is we don't want them just to teach it in a silo at that university. We want to be able to provide the professor notes to other schools that would be interested in teaching this course. So this particular one here is going to be recorded. It's going to be online as an option. So other engineering students from other schools can take advantage of that course. Also, if they're local, they can actually be sitting in the classroom and learning from Ms. Redmond as well. So 12-week engineering course that'll be rolled out next year, that we're excited to kind of see how that goes. But looking forward, you'll see here we also do scholarships with the Clemson University. Some of those are funded with Checkoff money this year as well. You also research. You'll see here Ms. Hannah that she's doing some testing on some grout and ungrouted masonry. So there's research that takes place at these universities as well. So again, lunch and lectures, being on research boards, being funding research, funding scholarships are all pieces to the puzzle of working with universities. So that course will actually launch in spring of 2025. We're working on a new architectural masonry course. It's with NC State. We don't have a lot of details out yet, but we have a professor who's going to teach that. We will cover that course. I will say, if you go back to Clemson, I failed to mention this. We're funding that course at a $28,000 cost of the using the Checkoff funds. So I can guarantee you, when we're talking to producers around Region 2, we're talking about where's their dollars going. It's going to fund some of those projects, some of those future courses. So you'll see at NC State, we're working on a 15-week masonry detailing course, planned to be launched next year. I think it's fall of next year before it be launched. But there again, we'll be funding that with Checkoff dollars. And that's important because, if you're a producer, you want to see where your dollars are going. So to actually start seeing some of those areas is very important to where they can go back and talk internally about it and then talk to their board about where we're spending some of these dollars. So I really feel like one of the key areas to using the CMU Checkoff dollars is really the grassroots level. I mean, you just can't get away from that. One of the things that, we've looked at is our block program has been good. When I say block fest or plant tours, basically the same things. But we've tried to say, how do we actually professionalize those and actually put things in documents that other people can use? So that's one thing we're doing, and I challenge other regions to think this way as well, is how can you put things, simplify your program into one-page documents or two-page documents that can be shared with other regions. And that's one of the commitments that we have in this program, was not just to boast about working at these different universities, but actually give you the tools outside of Region 2 that you can duplicate anything you'd like at those other universities within your own area. So the Cradle to Communities program is very good. I'll stop and talk about this for a minute. You heard me earlier mention we know we're built on the backbone of the small mom or pop and medium-sized producers, but it's also important to recognize some of their efforts that takes place. So you look at Andy Bryant here in the picture. Andy came and said, "Hey, can we do a Blockfest event?" Well, we know Blockfest typically means a plant tour and also a hands-on demonstration. And I said, "Well, let's talk about how we can amp that up." Because one of the things I think we critically miss across the U.S. with students is we don't have a tendency to show them the finished product. We always talk about how we make it, but we don't talk about what it actually goes into and what the finished product looks like. And we're all very visually oriented. So at the end of the day, if you want to show a student anything, show them a picture of masonry finished. I think that goes a lot further than show them a picture of a CMU. So here, what we decided to do was in the inside of this warehouse, we actually brought in Vulcan Materials, a supplier. We brought in Stay-Lite a lightweight supplier. We brought in Wholesome cement. We also brought in ACM. We also brought in CFI foam. And then we also had a contest inside the warehouse. And I'll kind of talk about some of this as we kind of move forward this. But Andy had an opportunity to really amp up the whole program to kind of make sure they understand the cradle to communities of how the process works of creating the products, what goes into our products, what the finished product looks like as well. So you'll see here, this is just where we're working with the different suppliers that were there for the University of Tennessee's. You'll see Emma, she actually gave an opportunity to talk about how the IWR actually goes into the block. Thought that was very important. You'll see Vulcan talking about how the different aggregate types and what we use those for. So we try to work on different angles, but they actually walk through the different stations to kind of all the way up to what the finished product looked like. So we had, Richard came in from CFI Foam, very great supporter of what we do as well. Here, he did a hands-on demonstration of what it looks like the foam that actually goes in the block. So I thought it was really cool. We passed it around to all the students, gave them an opportunity to kind of touch it and feel it. So it was a good learning experience for them. You'll see here on both of these pictures was really kind of a fun thing that we added into it. We actually took many different types of masonry products. We labeled them. We created a kind of a matching sheet. We had the students that probably the first time they've ever really seen some of these products. They actually try to match them up, and we call it Win the Masonry Money. And we gave away money for them kind of participating in that kind of little exercise there. But it also gave them an opportunity to kind of see the different variations. I think sometimes we fail to realize with university students that, and even with CMU, we have about 200 different type of masonry products. When I say products, I mean block that we can actually talk about. So to show them a variation there, I thought was important. And even Dr. Bennett came up and said, you know what? Out of all of his years of doing, he thought that was the most impactful thing that they can start seeing and visualizing the different products. And then we did a hands-on demonstration. I thought it was always important to give them a chance to touch it, feel it, understand it, ask questions about how do we actually lay to the line, why we do what we do, why mortar is 3/8. And other questions along those lines. So it's really important to always give them a chance to touch it and feel it. And then we brought Andy back in and really talked about it from a producer standpoint. So it was really important for them to kind of hear not only how things are made, but firsthand that these products are locally made. We can't get away from that either. That when you look at masonry, it's a locally sourced product. We want students to learn that, hear that from us. So when they come back, do you think they'll ever call Andy back and ask questions? Absolutely. And then one thing that was really unique about our Creative to Communities program is we actually brought in the engineering firms. We wanted the students to not only hear from the masonry industry, we wanted them to hear from the firms that were using our products in the field today. But more importantly, we wanted the opportunity for them to network. And what we learned from this was bringing in the firms gave them an opportunity firsthand to meet with these students. And you should have seen the number of business cards that were handed out for future internships, future job opportunities that may be available. So from my perspective, when you look at a university, the selling point, and when you marry up the firms with the schools, man, that's a great selling point, because what you're doing, you're taking part of the work off of the schools, because now these students have a firsthand relationship with certain firms. And I think that is so important that they can then make that connection, not only for future internship, but also more importantly, a future career with a firm that's very pro-masonry. So I thought that was very important. And then last thing we did, we kind of took them around. We did showcase some of the accessories that go on the wall, but I want you to kind of focus on the pictures behind the gentleman. We took pictures from around the region. We showed the different variations of block and what we use it for. So not only whether it be schools or whether it be in hospitals or whether it be in the different like commercial facilities that we use. We even had residential homes that we had on the wall as well. So they got an opportunity to go around to showcase and look at all the different pictures that were not only on the walls, but also that were on the, we had easels placed around the room. So it gave us an opportunity to really show that finished product. And we all know that lasting impression is most important. So that's why we finished up with that, with those kind of finished products of masonry. And then the thing that so where do we go from there, right? So we talked about the expansion of Cradles to Communities Blockfest to an all-day masonry expo. So in 2025, we're talking about bringing in multiple universities into one producer site. And I want to say this too, we'll finish it. One producer site, along with the suppliers, gave them an opportunity to kind of showcase all the pieces that go into masonry. So it turned it into kind of a masonry expo. But I do want to say something that was important about the University of Tennessee Cradle to Communities. This wasn't just a one producer program. We had Andy, then called General Shell. Andy at Willox Brothers then called Acme Block to get involved. So we had 3 block producers that were working together for one event for the betterment of masonry with university students. And that's what you want. You want to see these producers that are not just 20 miles apart, that were hours apart, come together in one location to kind of work towards pushing masonry back into these schools. So some of the things that came out of that is expansion into the architecture department, into a design competition, also sponsoring future masonry elective course. We've talked with them about doing that as well. Future lecture series on masonry, more on that. They do have some on brick today, but we also wanted to have more on CMU. And also there's research opportunities. I think that is really important at most of the schools when we talk with some of their PhD students are looking for opportunities for research. So I think it's our position is to bring some of those opportunities, working with the Masonry Society and CMHA and other groups to bring those to the schools, because we have students that are looking for projects that they can do. And if we can get them to do them on CMU, then it's a win for us as an industry. So moving forward, looking at the next one here, Isothermal Community College. You heard me talk earlier about community college. I think it's one of those kind of hidden gems that kind of get missed because we talk about colleges and universities so much. But you look at Wake Tech Community College. It's not in this PowerPoint, but at least want to kind of plug them. They have 60,000 students at Wake Tech. They do have a program there that we actually come in and do lunch and learns with. There's also a thing that we do with ACE as well with that school. You look at Forsyth Technical College is another one we work with. You look at Pitt Community College is another one we're starting to get in our foot in the door there. So community colleges doesn't go away. I think it's one of those kind of hidden areas that there again, a lot of schools just don't know masonry. And if the industry doesn't step up and own that, then we're going to have a hard time in the future. So one of the things that was very near and dear to me was the masonry for girls. We looked at a community college. We have been trying since 2000 to get our foot in the door to let us to do a masonry program for the students. We have 30 girls, ages from 4th grade to 7th grade. One of the key takeaways they've told me said, "Hey, we've got to have masonry. We've got to have women instructors." I was like, "Cool." So I always like a challenge, and that was a challenge to find masonry instructors. So if you look here on the left, you'll see Anna. She is actually in the field. She works daily laying brick and block. You look at the other 2 ladies, the one in the middle specifically, she's a project engineer. She actually drove 4 hours for this event. So you look at Emma, she came down from the Maryland area to help with this event. So I'm a firm believer, if you build it, they will help you. It's kind of my mentality about a lot of things that we do in this university program. So you'll see here on the left, we had all the girls up there. And one of the things we talk with them about as we kind of will go through some of these pictures, we had Anna to stop for a minute and really talk about her success as a woman in the masonry industry. What is the money that she's won? We wanted to talk about that. We want to talk about the certificates and the awards that she won. So she went through some of those, talk about how one competition that she beat out 64 guys to win the competition. So we want women from a diversity standpoint. We try to work that angle within our program to make sure that we show them, about masonry. And then we also took them through the Lego series, right? We gave them an opportunity to build, to take some Legos, build a different little samples that they built, showed them to us. And then what we talked about from there is how the mortar, what holds those, in reality, what holds our products together. We talked about the mortar and the wall. We talked about the brick wall you see behind there. The gray line, we kept it kind of simple for them, how that actually kept the products together in the wall. Another thing we did was a three little pig story, right? We can't get away from that. It's one of the most critical stories about our industry. Is the fact that every one of them knew it and understood it. We just want to make sure we don't lose sight of that because it's such an important, simple message that we can promote. We also did the Duncan Hines Bake a Cake thing as well. We actually put mortar in a bowl and we put a cake in a bowl and talked about how making a cake, mixing it together is the same concept that we go into mix and mortar, where they could understand kind of how that goes together. And then you'll see here on this table there, we had some product samples. We showed them several different colors that were offered within the masonry industry. I think sometimes people think of gray block and it's all we do. That's the furthest thing from the truth. So we showed them different pictures. So you'll see here on the screen, Emma showing the color samples to the ladies that touch it, feel it, get an idea of what smooth finishes and different finishes felt like. Here on the right, you saw them where they're actually taking the Legos and actually building out the different little projects that they built. We had a total of 30 girls. We had 3 sessions. Each group had 10 girls in there. Then we did the most fun part was we actually let them work and lay some brick on top of the CMU. And you'll see here that the girl on the right, she loved to just put her hands in it, play like it was playing in mud. And she stacked her blocks up, her bricks up. So at the end of the day, for us, it was more about them just being exposed to it for the very first time. And that was most important, that they had a sense of what it was and how it kind of works. So for the end of the day, you see here multiple different young ladies working. Some of them took it very seriously. Some of them look at it like it was a playtime. We didn't want it to be too super heavy. We wanted to dumb it down to make it fun for them. Masonry is fun, something we lose sight of. And we wanted to kind of make sure that the big takeaway for us, that they had an opportunity. So we actually have Besser to donate all small CMU blocks to the girls. We took them. We painted them blue and pink. And so all the girls got a souvenir as they left the class. This year we had 30. They've already told me that not only it was the best one they've ever done, we're now working to the instructor. What's really interesting is the instructors that were inside the entire camp. We're actually doing one for them. It's coming up in October, just for the women, the adult women. So it was really interesting. And another exciting piece to this was they're expanding it from 30 girls to 60 girls next year. So we really like the opportunity to work with the younger generation. You think about it, these girls are probably 5 or 10 years away from being exposed to more masonry, to ultimately working or going on to college and being exposed hopefully to more masonry. So for me, it's really the younger we start them, the better off we are, because we just need to be able to change the stigma of masonry that it's just block or just cinder block. It's so much more than that. I think we've done a phenomenal job at this particular Girl Power event to showcase how masonry can be fun, exciting, and more importantly, the finished product. So we did finish up showing them buildings that the masonry actually goes into, where their mom and dad works. We talked about that. We talked about the schools that they go to school in and why we build with masonry. We talked about the tornado drills and everything else. And so really got a chance to really pump the message into them early about not only the major benefits of CMU. So we kind of move forward a little bit. As you'll see here, so we do have, off the task group, we created a university toolkit. This toolkit can be used for any producer across the entire nation. We have them on USB drives that were provided by the UNC and Checkoff. I have those with me. I have about 30 of them left. More than happy to send anybody one that would like one. But what you see here, it has an intro email, the phone and letter information that you need. It has a partnership flyer. It has the education resource links. It has some masonry education opportunities that are available. It also has the Blockfest options, design competitions, and also in case they come on your site, a release form and masonry scholarships. And then we have one for universities. So they get some of the same stuff, but it is a little different. But ultimately for me is we have, we include all the universities. We include the scholarships that we're aware of, the high level ones. I'm sure there's some more regional ones, but it's not on the list. But we at least supply the high level scholarships that any student can apply for to meet the criteria. We also show you inside the University Toolkit, we show you 3 options of how to do a plant tour. Plant tour option 1, very simple, very gray, simple. Option 2 is kind of the plant tour along with the hands-on demonstration, kind of what it looks like, how much time you need to prepare for. That is available for you as well. Option 3 there, you'll see Blockfest Cradle to Communities, kind of how we did it. We lay it out step by step. It should be pretty straightforward. The bottom line is this is something that takes about a half a day to do this particular event here, but it's very successful. You can do it at any university and any producer that's willing to step up and do it. We also provide the technical resources in there, from the CMU resources to CMH lab information. Education resources are available. The CMU, also the Masonry Hub, is included in that. Research opportunities at the grant applications. Also scholarship opportunities are included. On-demand webinars. There's quite a few of those that are included in there as well. They can get to them through the link. We provide them on a flyer. The only thing you have to do is put your logo in the bottom right corner, your information. You can send this out to any university across your region. So also you'll see here the actual toolkit itself is 19 pages that we wrote out. Inside that there you'll see talking with universities, what that means. We'll talk about the resources available. We'll talk about the student design competitions. We're also talking about scholarships and educational opportunities. All of this is on the USB drive we can provide to any of you. We want to be able to share our resources with you. They're actually the CMU Checkoff resources, so you're more than happy to have those. So, going forward, kind of what do we look like the future looks like for us? I'll admit it, I struggle with getting my producers, all of them on board. I still have some that's on the fence. So even in a region, you will struggle to work with producers to get them engaged. The simple thing a producer can do, take a pencil, draw a 60-mile radius around your business. Any community college or university within that 60 miles, you should own it. Own it means you should be able to have conversations at least once a quarter with them and talk about how you can get engaged with them. They will help you understand that. If they don't, then you've got the tools and resources to help them understand how we can get engaged. We're looking at future research, what's called the Front Porch Initiative. It's a disaster area down in Selma, Alabama, about building a masonry framed home there. New masonry courses, I think we need those more on the construction management side also. And then also we're going to reposition some of you heard talk about the committees that I have. I do have people on the committees that I'm going to reposition to help with some of these other universities as well. Masonry Educators Forum, I think it's important that we always provide continuing education to professors inside the region, and then also leverage other regional efforts with universities. We do have a group that's set up. So Region 2 talks to Region 5, Region 4, and the other one. So we know what they're doing in those other regions. We're going to learn from each other. So I think that's the most valuable thing I can say is key takeaways. And then the Masonry in a Box, we're actually going to be creating that with Dr. Bennett. We're creating the entire program inside of a box. That's the spreadsheets, the worksheets, everything else that's needed can be given to any university being able to start a masonry program inside their school. And then the big one for me is expansion of the Cradles to Communities. I just think we need to think bigger than just doing Blockfest or plant tours. Those are simple, but really being able to make sure that lasting impression is what we want to ultimately get to the students. So the key takeaways, very simple. Start now. Do not sit on the fence. Don't sit on the fence for the next 4 years, 5 years. If you're a producer, if you're a supplier, then challenge your producer to being able to start it. My personal commitment to any producer across the entire U.S., if you need we won't have to get on a phone call, virtual call with you and talk through what you can do locally and to be successful. So it varies producer by producer and university by university. But doing something is a lot more than doing nothing. Leverage the University Toolkit. I think there's phenomenal resources that are available for you. Stay very persistent, right? In sales, we all know that it's not the first call that gets you to sell. So I think you have to stay persistent. They may not call you back for 6 months, but as long as you continue to make the effort to follow up, they will get back to you. I've never had a university turn us down for a meeting. And also own your local community college and universities. I just think that's so important. I mean, producers have to have the mentality and mandate it that we are going to own our universities. If you don't, and you just leave it up to the masses to market at them and get to them whenever they can, you're always going to have that gaping hole. So I know we have some producers that almost mandate their sales team be involved. I would encourage that. I think it's one of those you just have to make it part of your leadership review with your sales teams, that they get involved every year, and that you ask them how they're getting involved, and kind of make it part of their annual review. So that's just my commitment, my comments there. So last thing is, success is the sum of small efforts. It's repeated day in and day out. That's how you be successful in this industry. It's persistence and repeating the same thing over and over. Those repeatable processes can be duplicated anywhere at any university with any professor. All right, any questions?
James, great job. We have a couple questions in the Q&A. Is the toolkit available via Dropbox?
Not yet. We have been talking with the task group earlier this week. We had a quick call with them about where do we need to put it, where it can be available. But it will be available for you to access it across the U.S. We just got to find out where that proper place is. That's something Alicia and the team will let me know. We'll be more than happy to post it.
Okay. And the next question is, I'd like to promote TMS Masonry Educators Workshop, which is a great way to educate professors about how they can incorporate Masonry into their curriculum. Unfortunately, the one in June was canceled, but TMS will be offering it in 2025. Send your professors there in addition to all that James talked about today. So awesome. And Brian, if you have a date for that TMS Masonry Educators Workshop, we would love to have it. So feel free to email me directly with that. We have a couple, just not yet. So, okay, sounds good. On the Masonry Educators Workshop, sorry. And then James, there's a couple folks that have said that have sent me a message directly or put information in the Q&A that they'd like one of your flash drives. So I will email you directly with those names so you have them. So very good. And then two, if you guys need anything or have any questions, I'm sure you can email James directly. James, can you repeat your email for us so we can I can drop that in the chat.
So J Cain, CAIN at scmaonline.org. jcain at scmaonline.org. So, and call me my cell too. It's 704-352-6831. So always willing to help.
Well, thank you so much.
Appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, you've done just an amazing job with this program and just getting out of the gates with one of the Checkoff programs. And it's been a great investment and really started to establish a lot of relationships in region too. So thank you for that. And thank you to everybody out there who joined us for our webinar today. We'll have another one in September, just looking to get that scheduled. So look for communication on that. And we will see you all very soon. So thank you, everybody, and have a wonderful rest of your day. Goodbye.
Thank you so much. Have a blessed day.
You too.